Tonight, when you lay your head down, you're going to forget nearly everything that happens tomorrow. Not because you're forgetful, not because you weren't paying attention, but because your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. For the first few years of your life, something even stranger happened. You forgot almost everything. You watched your parents' faces. You learned to move. You tasted your first food. And then it all vanished, like it never happened at all. This isn't a glitch, it's a feature. Your earliest memory probably comes from around age 3 or 4. Maybe you remember a birthday cake or a toy or someone's face, but nothing from before. Not your first breath, not your first word, not the moment your eyes first focused on light. Nothing. And it's not because those moments weren't important. They were the most important moments of your life. You were being born into consciousness, but your brain decided to delete them anyway. The scientist Sigmund Freud called this infantile amnesia in 1901. He noticed that almost no one could remember their life before age 3 or 4, and he wondered why evolution would do something so brutal. Why would you encode the most formative years of your existence in memory, only to erase them forever? The answer lies in how your brain builds memories in the first place. Memory isn't a video camera, it's a story. Your brain takes fragments, sensations, emotions, patterns, and weaves them into a narrative. That narrative requires something that a newborn doesn't have yet: language, a sense of self, a framework of time. When you're a newborn, you don't have words for what you're experiencing. You don't have a sense of you that persists across moments. You exist entirely in the present. A baby doesn't think, "I will remember this moment." A baby doesn't think at all. And without language, without a narrative self, memories can't stick the way they do in older children and adults. Carrie Shreer, a researcher at the University of California, studied memory development in toddlers and found something striking. Very young children could form memories. They could learn to press a button to make a toy appear, and they could retain that learning for weeks. But they couldn't talk about those memories. They couldn't weave them into a story about themselves. And once they developed language, those pre-verbal memories were gone. They hadn't encoded the memory in a way their linguistic brain could access. Think about what happens when you learn language. You start naming things. You start using the word I. You start understanding that you are a person who exists through time. Yesterday and today and tomorrow, your narrative self begins to form. And the moment that narrative begins, your brain stops recording memories in the old pre-verbal way. It stops preserving the sensory, fragmentary experiences of infancy. Instead, it starts only recording memories that fit into the story of you. Your earliest memories aren't actually your earliest experiences. They're your earliest experiences that your narrative self could encode as part of your personal story. Psychologist Jean Piaget called this the language explosion phase, and he noticed that children's first genuine, autobiographical memories emerged right after they developed language skills. It wasn't coincidence. Language wasn't just a tool for describing memory. Language was the key that unlocked autobiographical memory itself. But there's something else happening too. Your brain is also pruning. In your first year of life, your brain develops far more neural connections than it will ever need. A newborn's brain is a wild tangle of possibilities. Billions of synapses, most of them unused. So your brain does something ruthless. It cuts them away. It keeps the connections that are used, that are reinforced, that are relevant, and it discards the rest. This pruning is called synaptic pruning, and it's not destruction, it's optimization. A newborn's brain uses about 60% more energy than an adult brain. Proportionally, you couldn't survive with that inefficiency past infancy. So your brain trims away 40% of its synapses in the first few years. The memories encoded in those discarded neural pathways go with them. Your earliest years are the most intensely experienced years of your life. In terms of raw sensory input, you're encountering everything for the first time. But they're also the least coherent years. You're taking in chaos. You're not organizing that chaos into a story yet. You're just flooding your senses with raw experience. And that raw experience, without language, without a narrative self, without stable neural architecture, doesn't survive into your adult memory. So when you try to remember being born, you're not trying to access a hidden video file that's locked away somewhere in your unconscious. You're trying to remember something that was never recorded in the first place. It wasn't suppressed. It wasn't repressed. It simply wasn't encoded. This is why you can remember what someone said to you yesterday, but nothing from the first 3 years of your life. The conversation yesterday fit into your narrative. You could say, "I heard this and it mattered because of who I am." That's a story your brain could tell. But being born? Having no language? Having no sense of self? Your brain had no story to tell about that. So it didn't make a memory. Your unconscious is filled with the residue of those early years, reflexes, patterns of attachment, foundational fears, and comforts. You carry infancy with you, but not as memory. You carry it as the architecture of who you are. You are the sum of those forgotten years, but you will never remember them. And here's the strange part. That's probably better. If you remembered everything, you wouldn't be able to function. You'd be drowning in chaotic sensory memories from infancy, random sounds,